Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the From the Farm podcast. I'm your host, AJ Richards, founder of From the Farm, the digital marketplace working to connect you directly with farmers and ranchers across the nation. These are family farms that are working to grow and produce the best food, highest quality, nutrient dense food you can find. Our biggest mission is to just bridge that gap between the people that grow your food and those that consume it so that we can build a more resilient food system. On today's episode, I'm excited to have with me Sydney Dix. Sydney has been a producer on From the Farm almost since we launched, but like many of our producers, they all have unique things that they do off the farm. Now, on one hand, it's not necessarily the greatest that you have to have an off-farm job to be in farming and ranching, but on the other hand, we get to meet people like Sydney and hear about the really amazing things they're doing. So with that, welcome, Sydney, if you'll introduce yourself for everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I guess a brief background on myself is my husband and I have been married for about 3 years now, and we are currently expecting our first little baby boy in December, a few months from today. But when we met, I was actually finishing up my master's in animal nutrition, and that kind of set me on this road. Growing up, I was a college athlete. I was an Auburn gymnast during my undergrad. So I always ate healthy, was always just conscious of taking care of my body and knowing what goes into me matters. And then as I started doing more animal nutrition research, I realized that that gets carried down the food chain from the food that we eat into us. And so finished up that master's degree, and I got to the point where I was like, I need to do more to help take care of these animals that are taking care of us. Really felt like God was calling me into veterinary medicine. Little did I know all that He would open my eyes to in that world. But through my studies, I have become extremely passionate about natural care, and homeopathy is a system of natural medicine that fits under the holistic branch. So you have like Chinese medicine, you've got herbalism, you've got naturopathy. All these fit into holistic medicine, but homeopathy is one specific path that I've found that it was the
Okay.
most intuitive to learn. To me, it made the most sense,
Mm-hmm.
and the most readily available. But so learning that, and then when I met my husband, he had cows he bought a herd from his uncle, but we really consider ourselves first generation because nothing was really like handed down to us, I guess.
Yeah. Did
We,
he grow up ranching or like
so
participating but didn't live on a ranch?
Right. His
Okay.
family they did like team roping, and so they
Mm-hmm.
kind of had their feet in the door a little bit. But he started helping his uncle um, because he just needed an extra hand.
Yeah.
And through that, he realized like I actually really love this. I want to do this. So that's when he bought the herd from his uncle. And about a year into owning that herd of like 40 to 50 mama cows, that's when we met. And so I was entering vet school. He had just gotten the herd, and somewhere along, I think, year two of vet school, I found the homeopathy stuff. But we had already started going direct to consumer with our beef about 3 months into marriage, actually. We were like, there's not enough on our plates, so let's add more. um, we were just really excited and passionate and felt like it was a calling that God had given us to
Yeah.
take it start to finish all the way. So we started the direct to consumer thing, and as I've been sharing with people how we raise our animals, I've realized that there are more people out there that have not heard of homeopathy
Mm-hmm.
that would benefit from it no matter what kind of animal, because like you learn the core principles and then you can apply it to animals or humans really once you learn the the background of the way to think.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
you don't have to know like the great thing about it really in homeopathy is you don't really have to run a bunch of diagnostic tests
Mm-hmm.
to figure out, oh, you have this disease and then treat that disease because you're really treating the patient. So if you get the flu and I get the flu, it may cause me to vomit and you may just have headaches and chills. So we're
Mm-hmm.
not going to take the same medicine because our body is not showing the same problems to
Yeah,
that.
the symptoms are different, and our
Right.
bodies are fighting them in different capacities.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. So so for those that are listening, what you've gone into is a completely different way to treat animals that isn't during COVID, this all became very apparent to a lot of folks, right? There
Right.
are doctors in the traditional system. Like if you're a homeopathic doctor, you were a quack. You were the crunchy granola hippie, blah blah, whatever you want to call it, right? That was the sort of the overall blanket, characterization they got. And then you had your actual MDs that went through medical school and they spent 8+, obviously way more years in school, trained for very specific focus, but also trained to prescribe pharmaceuticals, and just focus on the symptom versus the whole of the animal, right?
Mm-hmm.
The energy and the all kinds of things that exist. And so that's the path you went, is like, no, I'm going to look at this as a whole. And what happened, what did we do before pharma existed? Because if you're not aware, pharma is just as present in livestock industry for raising livestock as it is for humans going to the doctor, because there's a financial pathway, and in some cases that process does provide a result. The long-term consequence of that result isn't necessarily looked at, but it provides a result, right? You might have a sick calf in confinement. You can give it antibiotics and whatever else, and it'll survive long enough to go to slaughter. That's successful if that's the only thing that we're looking at, right, is getting that
Right.
meat on the table. So you went down this other path, and now how did you get introduced to that? What was your sort of impetus to get into this
So
direction?
I I think I started down the path of Chinese medicine because I knew that there was a university for teaching veterinary Chinese medicine in Florida. So we're in Alabama,
Okay.
so it's like I think it's like maybe 5 hours away from us. And I was like, well, I could do veterinary school and then I could go do that after. And I was like trying to find podcasts because I live an hour from my school. So on the drive to and from school, I would be listening to these natural, alternative, anything I could find, I would
Mm-hmm.
listen to, for cats, dogs, horses, pigs, ducks, didn't matter what it was. I was like, I gotta know what's out there because no one at my school, conventionally minded, is going to have this background to teach it to me, whether they're open to it or not.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what you don't know, and so I just started like listening and kind of going down rabbit holes and came across this one podcast, for dogs and cats, but it was the vet did a lot of homeopathic medicine. That was his main modality, and I was like, what? Why has no one ever told me about this? And I was like, I kind of felt like I had just found this hidden gem, and I really believe it was God nudging me down this road because I had just been praying like this doesn't make sense. Like I know that you've got me here to take care of these animals and to teach people how to take care of these animals and steward them well. Like I know that I don't like using a bunch of pharmaceuticals all the time for like
Yeah.
kind of my husband's health, and there's a time and a place, and that's the thing about homeopathy is you can use it alongside the pharmaceuticals. If you're not ready to you actually should not cut cold turkey if
Yeah.
you're conventional and then you're like I want to be organic and you stop right away. That's how you kill everything because
Yeah.
you're so deficient in your vitamins and minerals and the vitality of the animal is just non-existent. And so like you have to transition your herd over.
Mm.
And so like that's what we've been doing a little by little, with all of our beef stuff. But
Yeah.
the more I just turned over these rocks and just started researching and looking, I found an institute that would teach the veterinary homeopathy. So it's a couple of doctors that have been vets for 20 some odd years, and they taught at a veterinary homeopathy school as well. So they went through
Okay.
traditional school training. So to be a vet, period, you have to go through vet school, and it's just like one track. But after you graduate, you're technically qualified to
Hmm.
treat any animal.
So
Now,
you
there's
went. So
go
you
ahead.
went through. regular or traditional, or however you say it, vet school, and then
Yes.
chose a specialty path this direction.
So I actually, the way vet school works is it's 4 years,
Uh-huh.
and then after that, if you want to specialize, like if you want to only do radiology, then you can do, find a specialist path off of that.
Okay.
Or if you want to only do surgery, like equine surgery is typically a specialty, but you don't have to be a specialist to read radiographs. But if you're working under these other big corporates, you get paid more to specialize.
I see.
For me, though, it was like, I know I want to do my own thing. I know I want to help farmers and ranchers and homesteaders and people that are just passionate about caring for not only the animal, but the environment the animal is in. So none of that appealed to me. And then I found this course that let me start it between my second and third year of veterinary school. So I'm about to graduate in like May 1st of 2027 is our graduation date. But I've already taken my board exam um, about 3 weeks ago, tomorrow actually, and like I'm ready to like do this now. And so I was like, I know this is what I want to do. I know I want to incorporate this into my practice. I want it to be my main modality, and I want to start offering it to people. So I don't want to wait till I graduate and then find another specialty path. So I did this course that was supposed to be continuing education. So like it's set up to where you can get 168 hours of continuing education. But I told the teachers, I was like, I need to know this. I need to learn it now. I need to start applying it. And I've been using it the last couple years on our herd and seeing great success with it. So it's set up now. It's like I have 168 hours of coursework training in my back pocket of veterinary homeopathy that I can already apply and start teaching other people how to use. So that's the good thing too, is like it's a paradigm, a little bit of a paradigm shift if you've never seen it, seen it work, or never heard of it, because the word homeopathy, right, in and of itself, it sounds like some other language, but it just means basically the core principle is homeo, meaning like. So you're finding all of the symptoms and then you're matching it to the remedy that looks like those symptoms.
Gotcha.
So it's very simple once you can like accept that, okay, you have a headache, so you don't necessarily have Advil for that.
Yeah.
But you have a headache in the morning and you have chills with it. Oh, and you're sweating. Okay, that's going to be different than if you just had a headache at night and you didn't have sweats.
Yeah.
So
I used to own a CrossFit gym in Mesa, Arizona years ago, over 10 years ago, and I had a woman in my gym who brought Chinese medicine into the Banner Gateway medical system, and she was a member, so it was really fascinating to like talk to her about that process. That's a big accomplishment to bring in, into an institution of that size, to get them to adopt some of these things. And she said, in order to understand Chinese medicine, you have to forget everything you know about Western medicine. And I was like, wow, that's a pretty compelling statement. You know what I mean? So it's just, and I think kind of, if I'm understanding what you're saying, it's looking at the symptoms and choosing a different pathway versus the existing medical pathway. Yeah.
So one way to a good analogy for this, I guess, would be if your eye or your cow runs up to a fence, starts banging its head into the fence. Conventional medicine. Now, this is obviously like, this is dumbed down, but this is just to make the analogy make sense. Conventional medicine might say, okay, well, we're going to give it something to where it doesn't feel that pain where it hits its head against the fence.
Yeah.
And we might put some padding on the fence to make it less painful. But the cow's still going to have the issue of like, why are you even hitting your head against the fence in the first place,
Yeah.
So homeopathy looks at it as like, okay, well, first we're going to do what we can in the environment to remove that obstacle to the cure, which is hitting your head against the fence. And then we're going to give you this give you this remedy based on the way your body responds to you hitting your head on the fence. Because just because you go through the same sickness and I go through the same sickness, conventional treatments.
I might be blind. Yeah. Yeah, if you're looking at the whole thing, you might find out that I'm blind and you're just angry.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. Like
we're
there's a
both hitting our head against the fence, but I'm doing it because I can't see. You're doing it because you're pissed off, right?
right.
It's
Yeah. And you take into account also, and this is one thing that I love about, I say that a lot. There's a lot of things that I love about homeopathy. One of the things is you take into account, there's three levels that you look at when you're picking the remedy for them. They call them remedies, you can call them medicines, but it's little vials with sugar pellets that have been dosed with different homeopathic medicines. And each of these pellets carries with it the the information that your body needs from that original medicinal substance with it.
yeah.
So when you give the animal that substance, you're considering its mental and emotional state. So like, do I have you seen a change in my temperament since my the herd mate that I used to hang out with all the time, she died, and now all of a sudden I'm grieving.
Mm.
One, conventional medicine doesn't really address that. It's just like, oh well, she's standing on 4 feet and her calf's still nursing, so she's fine, you know. But
Yeah.
as farmers and ranchers and homesteaders, we know that something is often wrong before it shows up on a clinical level. And so homeopathy looks at the mental emotional picture. It looks at your the spiritual, which is kind of like your overall outlook on life, which that makes a little more sense when you're talking about humans. So you kind of have to really know your animals to know like what is affecting them on like the mental and emotional level. But then also you look at the physical, but oftentimes that mental and emotional picture matters more than your physical symptom. So like um if your cow is lame because a bull mounted her wrong, like yeah, it matters. You looking at which joint is lame will point you to different types of remedies, but also it matters if like she's restless and she doesn't want to move, like she wants to move all the time. She's better with movement. She's antsy. She's still trying to get around on that leg versus if she just wants to go off by herself and be left alone. Like that matters, and it points you to different remedies that you can use.
Okay, so often I make the mistake when I speak or do an interview. I always get questions from people after, like, yeah, but what does it actually look like? So, can you give us an example of a call that you would go on that is common, right? Something that is common in the cattle industry, maybe pneumonia or something like that they're dealing with regularly, and what would they see when you come out? Like, if they were to watch you do what you've learned to do, what are they watching you do to treat the animal?
Yeah. So I walk through this a lot on our social media. Like when we have something come up with one of our cows or even our dog or our cat, the process is the same.
Yeah.
But I'll give you a specific example of a video that I have on my Instagram is a calf that had a snake bite. So my husband pulled up to check on the cows one morning. He was like, hey, she's got a swollen jaw. I think I see puncture wounds, back near the neck somewhere. Can you go out and see? And this was pretty early I think this may have been the first time I tried to use homeopathy on our cattle herd. So I was like, yeah, like I was excited, but at the same time I was like, please work, because I just spent so much time learning this. And if it doesn't work, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So it was funny. A little bit of a leap of faith, but
yeah,
it shocked my husband and it shocked me. I mean, it reassured me, but it was pretty amazing to see it. So what happened is he called me out there, and I identified the calf, made sure it was the one he was talking about, and her whole, like, the underside of her jaw, it was like she didn't have a jaw. It was just like her, like, brisket area was connected to her muzzle. I mean, like, it was pretty obvious. And so I looked at the snake bite, and there's a couple of different remedies that you want to choose from for a snake bite. And I talked through two of them. And one of them is called leadum, which is when you have a cold swelling. So you would expect it to be like hot, heated, but also you might expect to see that calf like hot and angry and like just it looks red and inflamed. But when you see sort of like a lack of the reaction that you're expecting to see, that points more toward ledum, versus the other one is lachesis, which is like hot, angry, swollen. Don't touch me. I'm really uncomfortable and upset about this. Okay. So this is where it really comes to your advantage to know your herd, but also where homeopathy comes to your advantage, because conventionally you're probably going to have to try to get that calf up in a chute, or the mom and the calf, away from the herd. All that, meanwhile, you're stressing them out even more because you're trying to single them out. Or I mean, you could try to dart them with something if you think that's what's going to work best. But all it takes after you identify the correct remedy is you take a few of the pellets from the correct remedy, put it in a spray bottle or like a backpack sprayer for like a garden hose, and you shake it up and you just spray it on their nose, because cows will lick their nose, and so it just has to get on their mucous membrane. And so really you only have to get 1 drop of this remedy in them. So it's not dosed based on body weight, which is one thing that can be very cost effective in the long run, because you're not spending $30 every time you have to give a treatment. And that's low end of what conventional treatments cost. So I mean, it's actually, I calculated it out, and it's like a few pennies every time you need to spray an animal. And so then if you have this remedy made up in a big bottle, you also have that whole big bottle that you just made from those few little pellets that you put in that water. So after you treat them, it depends on what they're going through, versus like if it's an event that like just happened, like, hey, that cow was bitten by a snake, or if it's like this calf has had pneumonia, been struggling with it off and on for the last 6 months. So that's going to be more of a chronic thing, versus the acute injury thing you can point to, like, hey, this came up overnight. She was good yesterday. She's not good now. Those are things that you'll see a faster turnaround typically. So
will the chronic issue be a different remedy?
Not necessarily. So they'll ask, and in our course, they say, like, are you, is this a chronic or acute? And then most of the time you say, well, it's chronic, because everything's really chronic, because like if you're as healthy as you need to be, then like you're not going to be affected when the event happens to you, you know. But as far as like picking acute versus chronic, there are some remedies that tend to have a deeper acting, like affinity for like deeper tissues in the body, or longer acting. What's a better way to put this? More like deeper into your soul than like a superficial injury to your skin.
Okay. Yep.
So some of them have more benefit if it's like a more emotionally deeply rooted disease, versus
almost like a trauma versus
yeah. So like you get hit by a car, that might be really, really bad, but like it's still a thing that just happened. You know, it's not like, hey, you've been struggling with this respiratory infection for 6 months, and now all of a sudden you're like, you've got a snotty nose that's developed, but like it's worse than it was yesterday. So and some of these remedies, like, you'll use for multiple different instances. So like I've used trying to think of some good analogies here. There's some that like you'll use if you see a cow with diarrhea. That would also be used if you have your barn cat that's vomiting, you know. So it just depends on really what fits the symptoms. So you have, I brought this book.
Is that because it's in the digestive tract, or has something to do with because vomiting and diarrhea?
Sometimes yes, sometimes it is. A lot of it though is because the mental emotional picture still fits. So
I see.
For the people that can see the actual video, I have this really big book that's got over 2,000 different remedies in it. But there's about 50, not even that many actually, probably closer to like 30 that are really good and beneficial to have on hand for your most common injuries in like animals.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so those are the ones that I really focus on teaching people and letting them have them in their back pocket, because like when you so like this remedy kit, I had it with me when I went out to see this calf, and so then I knew from my options, I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick, you know, this one over this one. It's gonna be one of these two. And I sat there and I looked at it and I was like, okay, look at my little cheat sheet that tells me, you know, reminds me which one is stronger for this instance or that instance. Once you pick it, you treat it, and then like you put the bottle back in and you have it for 40 more uses. But it's literally, it's a box that's like 8 by 8 inches, and it'll fit in any vehicle you have. And the good thing about this is you don't have to you actually don't want to keep this refrigerated, because the remedies are sensitive to basically human invention. So you can leave it out in the heat, because this system is over 200 years old.
So it's used to heat.
Yeah,
it's
you
used
can
to heat in
use
that
it.
environment at that time of year. Like it's
Yeah.
part of nature.
We literally have a shelf in our barn that we set it on. So like I try to keep it out of direct sunlight and away from any other, like, really, like if you have essential oils, you don't want to put it right next to essential oils. But as far as leaving it on the farm, you can leave this box on your farm. Now, probably wouldn't in Alabama, I would advise people not to leave it in their car in the middle of July because of the extreme heat that we have here in these vehicles. But realistically, you can just literally have this sitting. You can have one at each location that you have your herds set up. So if you have multiple leases, it's easy to just buy a box and have it there to have on hand with the most common injuries that you see. Because how many times have we shown up? Oh, today's the day. I'm just going to run by real quick, make sure everything's fine. You're on your way to some event, and then, like, lo and behold, you got a downed cow, or that calf is struggling to get up, and now you're like, there goes my afternoon plans because now I have to run to the feed store. Well, it's actually Sunday, so now I have to figure out, does Tractor Supply even hold what I need? And like, you're trying to get a hold of somebody, but this is like, it just prepares you for those emergencies that are obviously unforeseen, that the cows always love to throw on us, right?
Which seem to happen always.
Yeah,
That's why when we do calls with producers, I'm like, it never bothers me when somebody's late or has to reschedule because I know what they're dealing with.
Yeah. So I guess circling back around to the picture of using it practically, you observe then. So like that day, and I teach people, like, based on the different scenarios, when you would give a certain strength. So like we call them potencies. So you have a 30C, you have a 200C. Those are the ones that I usually stick with teaching people, unless it's a really deep-rooted chronic issue. And then I like to work on them more one-on-one rather than like handing them the reins, because there can be some like multiple complications for the really deeply rooted chronic ones. But for your everyday emergencies, injuries, excuse me, you can observe right there for 15 minutes and see, like, okay, she doesn't look like she's aggravated more. She looks like she's doing okay. Sometimes you'll even see an improvement in their mental status. So they were kind of laying down, but now she's up, and this little calf is going to check out what her other herd mates are doing, or she's starting to play a little bit. So at that point, based on how you feel, you can either give them another dose and wait, or you can call it good for the evening. I think I gave her I gave her one dose, and then 15 minutes later I gave her another, because I was using a pretty light potency. And then I came back the next day mentally prepared to dose her again, and the swelling was gone. So within 24 hours, it was like she went from this like bottle jaw to looking like, couldn't tell her apart, couldn't pick her out of the herd from another calf if you didn't know who she was in the first place. Yeah.
I'll bet your husband was way more surprised, because you went through the trainings and he's like, okay, babe, I got your back. And then he sees it and he's like, whoa.
That was pretty much it. That was pretty much how it went. We have another instance, and this video's on our social media too, but our dog decided to jump out of the back of the pickup truck. Somehow he jumped out the back, I thought, but ended up in front of the back wheel. Anyway, he ran out, landed on pavement, got run over, and I was like, I guess now or never. So I laughed because I'm like, I guess he just thought I needed one more really good example to show people what this stuff can do. I mean, he was like urinating blood. So obviously at that point, you have to, this is when I like to tell people, like, don't write off your vet. You still need your local vet. Because like you may need to take something to the vet to make sure, like, are they peeing blood because like they have muscle injury and just the muscle, I just drew a blank. The hemoglobin, myoglobin in your muscle, which is just what gives it that red color. Your body will filter that out if you have like severe muscle damage. So then it can look like they're urinating blood, but it's actually just that color from the muscle itself. So at that point, I had to assess that using my veterinary-based knowledge and make sure he didn't have like a ruptured bladder, all these things. Once I realized, like, okay, like there's still severe injury here on some level to his tissue, but nothing's broken or out of place, and he's not about to bleed out. Then I just used homeopathy, and like 5 days later, he was back to chasing the cat around the yard and wrestling with the cat. So
wow, that's awesome. Yeah, crazy how he did it. I did that when I was 5, in the back of a truck delivering wedding invitations, and I fell out the back and ended up under the back tire. But if somebody knew homeopathy, I wouldn't have had to go to the hospital, because ultimately what they found out is had no internal bleeding, no broken bones, just was beat up, So that's, me and your dog have a story to share, so that's funny. Yeah. Okay, so what about, are you familiar, and so you probably haven't dealt with this yourself yet, but are you familiar with these practices used to treat entire herds or large groups of cattle that have contracted something or whatnot, and what's happened there?
Yeah, so there is a way you can treat on a herd level with homeopathy, or let me say, dose on a herd level. I try to avoid using the word treat for the reasons, and I'm sure all the audience knows the reasons. So this is for educational purposes only.
We're not treating nothing. It's for educational purposes.
We're not treating. This is just educational. Do with it what you will. But there is an instance where you can use it on a herd level, and we have actually used this. And the scenario where we used it was, I think the weather had just changed, and everybody started to look like that. We just were like, everybody's kind of breathing hard, and a couple of the calves have like a snotty, runny nose or something. And I was like, well, it's definitely not going to hurt. Let me just, because homeopathy is so gentle. So you can put like 5 to 7 pellets in like a 250 or 500 gallon water trough and just stir it in. And you do that like once or twice a day, depending on which strength you have and the severity of the issue the animals are facing. And then the cows will get it through their mom, like through their mom's milk, or the moms themselves will drink it, But if there's someone that's not struggling with it, then it's not going to overthrow their body systems already in homeostasis. So the reason is because homeopathy, they say it acts on an energetic level, which makes sense if you know anything about quantum mechanics, quantum physics. You can get really deep and nerdy into it, but I just like to say it's on an informational level, which makes sense to us if you think about, like, we're having this conversation right now, and if I tell you, hey, you have a fly on your head, but it's on the right side of your head, like, you need to swat it off, like, that makes sense to you. But if you swat it off and like there's actually not a fly there, like, that doesn't hurt you, it doesn't throw you off balance.
Right.
The alternative is when you do find a correct remedy, sometimes people will give them like too strong of a potency, or they'll dose them back to back to back. And so if I start telling you, hey, swat the right side of your head, swat the right side of your head, swat the right side of your head, and I'm yelling at you, it's like, then it might actually get what you call an aggravation. So the aggravation just means that like you kind of just pushed them a little too far. So what you do at that point is you back off, you stop dosing, and then they come back from it, they recover from it, because it's not like you just gave them a drug that now has to be metabolized through their body. It's an informational thing, and it's like you give them time to just breathe, and reset from the instance. And it's very, very a very gentle approach. When done correctly, you won't have side effects.
Yeah.
Either. So,
what's the history of homeopathy in this direction? Like, what was the commonality of it till what time, and then what changed? I'm sure you've learned some of that in the specialty training you've gone to. It's probably like 101, like when you get started. Here's why you've never heard of us. So what happened? Like, where did it come from?
And this actually put a fire in me to share it even more when I realized what was being done to keep it on the down low. Mm-hmm. So 200 years ago, some 200 plus years ago, a man named Samuel Hahnemann he's over, I can't remember what country he was from, not from America, somewhere in Europe, and he was either German or he was translating a German medical book for someone, but he was trained as a medical doctor. In this translation, he found where someone used, I think it was quinine is what it's called, but to treat malaria. Okay. And so he realized that like the smaller the dose of the quinine that this person used to treat the malaria, the less severe reaction the person. It was like it was healing them, but it wasn't causing all the other weird, crazy side effects, like toxicities is what we call them today. And so he started experimenting with, like, we call it the infinitesimally small dose, which is just a fancy word for saying you get it, so you dilute it so much that actually scientifically there's not a molecule left of that original substance in the water that you use to create these pellets or the medicinal remedy. Mm-hmm. That means that when you test it in a lab, someone's going to tell you you're crazy because all they see is water and alcohol if that's used to preserve it.
They can't see the energy. They can only measure the...
They can't see the energy. So if you've ever, that's like telling someone, well, I didn't make that cow move. All I did was step to the left. And it's like, well, but you step to the left really, really quick, and that matters. But the physical science of that, they're just going to say, well, you went from here to there. But we all know that the energy and how you act, how you do that matters.
Yep. My cousin always said bovine psychology, and it's really kind of just him looking and even slightly shifting his body. And
yeah. And so, and part of that is you want it to really be their idea. And the same applies here with homeopathy. It's so gentle because you're giving them water that has the instructions of like this medicinal property. Not, I say medicinal, most of them started off as like herbs, but you could go from A to Z all the way through the alphabet and find different types of things that are made into, you can make anything into a homeopathic remedy. All you have to do is take a piece of something. I could make a remedy of my hair. Take a piece of my hair. You'd have to grind it up to where it was just little powdery parcels. Take one part of that, put it in a jar, add 99 parts water, and then you succuss it, which they call potentizing. So you're releasing the energetic information from that hair into the bottle with the water. So from there, you take one drop of that, put it in another bottle, add 99 more parts of water, and you do that like 200 times if you want to get a 200C potency. So by the time you get there, scientifically, the particles that are left in there, it's like so far below, it has something to do with Avogadro's number. And I was kind of like, you can go really far into trying to figure out the physics of it, but the basic principle is that you have the essence of that original substance in there. And so then when you give it to your body responds to that energetic message. And it says, oh, okay, I need to grow more hair, you know. I mean, that's like, obviously, that's a very simplified version of that.
Mm-hmm.
But you can actually look at the way that they tested these medicines. Hahnemann had volunteers, like, I can't remember, thousands, I'm sure, thousands and thousands of volunteers test different remedies, but they wouldn't know what they were testing. And so they kept like a journal. And in this journal, they recorded all of the things that they experienced when they dosed themselves repeatedly with these different remedies. So, like, if you and I had the same remedy, some of those signs would overlap. Like, we would both start to get a headache when we woke up at 5 a.m. and we would be thirsty at 3 in the afternoon, oddly thirsty. And then our right big toe would start to itch, or, you know, like, but then you might also have remedies like you sneeze at 4 in the afternoon every single day, and I don't ever have that. I cough at 2 in the morning, you know. And so we write all these things down, and he devoted his life after he started discovering this to documenting all of that. And all of those findings are put into the Materia Medica. That's that huge, this 2,000 page, not 2,000 page, 2,000 remedies. There's a lot more than 2,000
pages.
Yeah. So that those are called provings, and so that is your original scientific research, you know. Gotcha. So when people say there's no scientific evidence of studying it, it's like, actually, yes, it was observational research that was done as it was developed. And so since then, people have found that it's so successful that there's not really a need to do all these clinical studies. Now, there are people now starting to try to test it, but the other thing is, like, we all know different big companies, pharmaceutical companies, back their research to support their own drugs.
Yeah. Yeah, that cause all kinds of problems.
Oh, hello. I mean,
yeah.
And none of the people that are using homeopathy, because it's such an affordable, really the biggest investment, honestly, is just one, being okay with people calling you a little crazy, because they probably didn't call you crazy.
Yep.
But they already do that anyway, you know, so you might as well make it worth it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Two, just investing in learning it. Like, the amount of hours I've spent studying this, time, energy, financial, whatever it is, all of that. And now it's like, this is so beneficial. Once you start learning it, you can apply it across all the species. But so all that to say, it is like one of the original scientifically backed medicines. And it's a complete system. And in there, there's a guidebook that Hahnemann wrote. There's a couple, actually, multiple editions, but they call it the Organon. And in there, he talks about how it still matters that you have a healthy environment. You know, like, you clean up your dirty electricity and your EMF exposure. I wear my little EMF harmonizer almost everywhere I go. And you eat healthy, and you get fresh air, and you put your feet in the grass, and all these other things that are basic exercise, movement, you know, not overcrowding your animals. All of that matters. And those are called removing the obstacles to the cure. At that point, when something happens to you, to your animal, that's when homeopathy really shines, because it's like, hey, you've already set the playing field up for your body to be able to respond to a change in the environment. And that's when
you got rid of all the static and all the white noise, so that
and you're just saying, hey, okay, you almost had it. Like, I'm gonna nudge you back on track here. Like, you didn't take a whole U-turn because you're not confused by all your surroundings, but you need help. Like, you can't get yourself back on track. So then homeopathy steps in and just helps gently nudge them back in the right direction. And a lot of times, the first thing you'll see is that mental, emotional recognition. Like, okay, if you do have something that has a broken leg, and you know it's a broken leg, but you're not going to take that animal to surgery, you can still do things with homeopathy to help heal the tissues around that, depending on, you know, what kind of, obviously, fracture it is. But even there's some stuff you can do palliatively too. Like, if it is end of life care, like, you know that's going to be a cold animal, you can still do things to help keep it from suffering without necessarily sacrificing the whole natural path that you're trying to go down.
Yeah. Awesome. So where do where do you teach this? Like, I know you have a school. I'm going to share that, but talk to us about your school program, how people can connect with you, and like how you teach this. What's your path to move forward to share the knowledge that you've gained?
Yeah, so we are building out right now, which I'm very excited about. The school community. Yeah, that's it. Right now, we're playing around with some different ways that we want to offer it to people.
Hmm.
But the concept is right now we're at where you can join. You've got a free week to look at the material, and that one teaches you your basic principles. It goes more into detail, things that I kind of brushed over today, like, teaching you how to dose for different types of things, but we cover lameness within that first module.
Okay.
And then after that, currently we're set up on a monthly schedule, I think, to where like a monthly subscription for like the full course. But you
Cool.
can take what we learned from the free if you just don't have the time, don't have the energy, you're not ready yet. You can still take what I learned, what I teach you in the free module, and go ahead and start applying it. But we'll go deeper into the psychology of it. Also, provide an actual support group for when crap does hit the fan, and you're like, "Is this insane? Should I?" Have you seen something like this work with homeopathy before? Because I still question myself. Honestly, I have. We just got a new border collie to
Hmm.
work our cows, and we got him trained, bought him fully trained. So that was a big investment. Then we found out he had heartworms, and I was like,
Oh.
"Oh no!" And so I panicked a little bit because conventional vets don't like heartworm. And the
Hmm.
reason for that is because the way they treat heartworm is you kill the worms. They're targeting the worms to kill the worms. And that can cause a die off reaction where the worms will basically clog your arteries, clog your,
Hmm.
yeah, and cause an embolism. That's the most dangerous thing about treating heartworms the conventional way. But I found a doctor that has worked multiple times on dogs with heartworms, and he's used homeopathy. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to go for it. Now, part of that is, this dog was on kibble. So part of that is we're trying to get him onto a healthier diet to remove the obstacles to the cure. And we have like, I have a natural flea and tick collar that I like to use on our dogs. So I'm using that to help, and it does mosquitoes too, to help prevent mosquitoes. But like, I have to pay attention to my environment and know like what fits our operation the best. So some of
Hmm.
those things, like if you want more help, more guidance on that, that's what I have the community built out for, um, to help people as well. And another thing too is if you have friends or family that have other animal-based businesses, it's not just for people that have livestock. All
Right.
this applies. Like I used the examples on the dog. I have a cat that showed up limping, bleeding really bad, and I used some homeopathy on him. And those are examples that are on the school website too. Like they're in the about page. If you scroll, you can kind of see some examples. And you can always message me too. I've got an Instagram where I share a lot of this, like just case testimonials from when I've used it. And we have Facebook as well too that shares over too.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So in the about page, you've got some different examples. Great. Awesome. Um, what should, well, let me ask you this. So you mentioned a little bit about the cost. And one of the things that I notice when we're onboarding producers in from the farm to sell direct, number one question I always get from people that are new to go in direct to consumer is how much should I sell it for? And that is a loaded question because it's always individual to their input costs to raise their animals.
Mm-hmm.
And so input costs are a big deal, right? Right now, cow calf guys are making more money than they ever have, rightfully so. But also, they're paying more money than they have ever have for diesel fuel and any other inputs they're doing. So when it comes to the vet side, to caring for the animals, I imagine this has the potential to make a pretty significant reduction in their inputs on their medical side if they really lean in and learn how to do this.
Yeah, and that was part of the reason why, personally, I started learning it so fast as well. I mean, I knew that I was going to teach it, but also I was
Mm-hmm.
like, we're growing our herd, and I keep seeing us, this cow show up lame, and we either can't do anything for her because we're all natural, or like we're trying to figure out what do we do for her.
Yeah.
Because I know that's a hard spot to be as a food producer. If you're trying to go all natural, you're like,
Because you want to sell your food to the customer that's looking for no hormones, no antibiotics,
right.
no vaccines, none of all these things, and so you believe in that too. So you're trying to
Yeah,
figure out how to deliver that.
right.
Wow.
And
Okay.
then you're trying to
Yeah.
balance that with, like when done correctly, your animal should not have antibiotics left in its system at the time of
Right.
processing. Like we know that.
Right.
What I try to tell people so much is like the huge difference is our animals are not so sick that we have to feed them antibiotics in their feed every single day, which is what's happening with stuff on the feedlot.
Hmm.
And so like our goal is to keep them as healthy as possible in their natural environment. If it did go septic and it was past the point of like, hey, I want to use homeopathy, you can still use an antibiotic and have a healthy animal. Homeopathy will just also help it heal faster. And then it's up to you based on your program if you know, put that animal at the stockyard for sale, or if it goes into a different route for who knows what. But
Yeah.
so it's helped us feel better, like we're stewarding our animals better, but also it has saved us. I don't know how many times we would have either just like sat with our hands under us and been like, well, I'm just going to hope for the best, like
Yeah.
you're actually being proactive, getting ahead of it. And so then we all know how much right now it costs to lose a calf or to lose a cow, or God forbid, lose a calf and a cow pair.
Hmm.
Um, but the other side of that too is like when it does come down to like, do I make the vet call or not? The more comfortable you get with taking care of your animal, like there's times where I would have called a vet, but because I started to see this stuff working, I was like, I'm gonna give it to the animal and I'm gonna see a reaction. They're either going to be better tomorrow or not. Like they're going to be moving in the right direction or not. And if they're moving in the right direction, then I might wait and see. But if it's not what I was hoping for, then I may take them to the vet. But yeah, it has a lot of potential to save time and money and just the overall stress of I don't feel like I'm equipped to care for my animals. So this like
Yeah.
really puts the power back into your hands because none of these, like I offer a kit through our course that has all of the remedies that like I've found most useful for everyday farm and cat and dog owners. And so that kit has all of those remedies in it that I teach, but you can also go onto Amazon and buy them. Like if you run out and you can't get a hold of me, or some health food stores have them too. And you don't have to have a prescription to get Banamine because
Yeah.
something's hurting or limping, which that's a horse example, not a cow example. But
Right. Right. Cool.
yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. What a helpful, the information is just abundant that you and others have. Is this a growing movement in terms of the number of folks like yourself going to school for this pathway? What are you seeing in there? Because I know that nationwide we're hurting for veterinarians as it is. So what
hmm
do you see going down this pathway?
currently I don't see it um, taking off like I wish it would.
Hmm.
There's a lot of people that are probably like two generations ahead of me that are like close to retiring. And I'm like, tell me everything you know,
Yeah,
please,
yeah,
because like there's no one else here, and there's a few here and there in between, but I think there's something with the way that our society has been set up to really okay, so for part of it is like I got opportunities in vet school where I could go work for the USDA, like
hmm,
doing food animal stuff, still have that opportunity to do stuff working like with farmers.
hmm,
But I was like, I'm not going to want to do things the way you're going to want me to do them. So
yeah,
I'm not going to go for that grant or that scholarship because I can't say that I believe in that and that I believe that's really the best way all the time. I mean, there's a time and a place for antibiotics, and I'll say that all day long, but not every time and place is the time for antibiotics.
yeah, right.
So
Shouldn't be the
knowing
go-to.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it used to not be that way. But when you start looking at, well, across America, I'm pretty sure we're one of the only countries, maybe the only country where big pharma can pay for like commercial advertisement.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it's the same companies going into veterinary medicine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's the same people developing these drugs. I had someone have a professor that was bragging the other day in our clinics about how they're developing a drug that helps suppress the immune system, and they're using it in dogs that have itchy skin and stuff. Which that's a whole tornado. That's one of those cases that you would definitely need help with. That's not a let me take this course and pick one remedy that fits best. That's you need help unwinding that with a veterinary homeopath for sure,
Hmm.
because at that point the reason they're not responding to it is because you've given them so many suppressive treatments and stuff, and now you're just trying to suppress the warning sign that the body's telling you something's
Yeah.
wrong. So
Yeah. Yeah. You're layering on top. I also imagine that one of the barriers for people getting into this that would like to get into it is the fact that you have to go through the conventional school system to become a veterinarian first under the traditional model before you can even go into this specialty training, I guess.
yeah,
And then the cost and time and in many cases, it's not even the cost and time. It's just people that those that are interested in this, they don't want any intrusive, you know, ideas forced on them by a system they don't believe in. I would imagine that's a big part of some of those decisions to not go all the way through.
yeah, I had to really, like when I was preparing for my board exam, I just told myself I'm gonna just shut off the part
Yeah,
of my brain that
yeah,
knows another way, and I'm just gonna learn the facts, so to speak.
yeah.
But one of those facts, for instances, is they, in order to treat pigs for or prevent help piglets not get this really bad GI disease. No, excuse me. To help the moms not get the really bad GI disease, is they take the pigs that were infected with it and feed them to the mothers. Yeah, that yeah, because they think it's sort of like a type of a vaccine, which is where you're get exposing them to it one way, right? And I'm just like,
Yeah,
there's so
they
many things.
definitely,
There's so many things that I could say there, but
yeah,
I.
they definitely forgot looking at this as a whole, right? Like, just
Mhm.
yeah, that's wild.
Well, even then, like your vaccines. So
Hmm.
some people will be like, oh, so homeopathy works kind of like vaccines. Yes and no. So the original idea of vaccines is to expose your body to something gently, and then it gets that message and then prevents you from getting sick the next time you're exposed to it. Well, one, in homeopathy, it's you prevent things by building up your health first. And then if you do get sick, that's when or you do get injured, whatever, that's when you give the remedy. But also, it's not one remedy fits all. Like
Mm.
they try to give one vaccine for all the instances. It's you might have this remedy when you get the flu today, and then 3 years from now, when you get the flu, you may need a different remedy too, because you're not the same person that you were 3 years ago. Like your body has gone through changes and responds to things differently.
Yeah, yeah, man. Well, Shelby, I appreciate you doing this work and continuing that knowledge on for those that will come across it at some point, especially through your school training, and they can kind of spread the word out. Have you done any presentations or anything? And I might have asked you this once already, but at like Homesteader Conference, because I could see this being a group that would really appreciate the knowledge that you bring.
I haven't yet. With vet school wrapping up, I just started reaching out to different organizations. So if anybody has organizations they'd like me to come speak at more, I am scheduled to do one at a local health food store. And she's got some, like, I think local pet owners that are going to be really interested in this. So if you have suggestions or if your audience has suggestions, I'd love to keep spreading the word and sharing this knowledge.
Awesome. Cool. How can people get a hold of you? How would you like them to stay connected with you? You've got the school program. We'll put the link. I'll have you send me the link for them to be able to go check that out and join. And I'll put that in the comments. But how else can people follow you, or how would you like them to stay engaged?
Yeah, so our Instagram is Diamond D Ranch Beef with an underscore between each of those words. And then our Facebook is facebook.com/diamonddranch.online. So that's like our beef website is diamonddranch.online. And there should also be a way that you can connect with me there online through our regular website. I've got phone number there. It's like our business phone. I kind of tie both of them into that, so you can reach out there or email. Pretty contactable. I'm not hiding in the shrubs somewhere. So
Yeah.
Any of our social media, school, through our website, all of that, and I'll give you links to those as well so they can check them out.
Awesome. Cool. Well, appreciate you joining me today. I'm glad we got this rescheduled. Congratulations on the new member of the family that's on the way. That's exciting. Very excited for you guys. And for everybody listening, if you're a producer, farmer, rancher, homesteader, cottage maker, we would love to have you on From the Farm, help you connect with consumers across the country. We've made it really easy for you to list your products. And if you are a consumer, go to fromthefarm.org and check out the people around you. If you sign up, it's a free membership for consumers, and then you put your address in, and when you do, it'll put the folks who are closest to you up for you to see first. You can also check map view and kind of just scope around and see who's out there and who are the farmers and ranches on From the Farm that you can buy from directly. Many of them ship, so if you don't find anybody close by, no worries. You can also shoot them a message and ask them questions that matter to you about how they raise their food, and that's what they're there for. We're here to bridge the gap between the consumers and the ranchers so that you can actually ask the questions that matter to you most, and that means we have to rely less on the corporate labels, and we can build those direct relationships. So with that, thanks for joining us, everybody, and have a good day.